welcome to this webinar. Our topic today is cracking the NIS2 code. We're going to be talking about the compliance solutions and giving practical advice to all the people affected by this. My name is Janne Kauhanen. I will be your host today, and I'm joined by Antti Laatikainen. And sorry, there's a little bit of happening in the room. And I'm joined by Antti Laatikainen and Albert Kubov-Gonzalez here, who are the actual experts. Guys, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Me first. Antti Laatikainen. I'm a principal consultant from security and risk management team here in Finland. Been working in company for 8 years, and main job is to build compliance programs and ramping up security culture in companies, especially on the parts where we have to build readiness for something that includes implementing technology and training people and having the policies and processes all the way up to strategy level. So that's my main bread and butter.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, my name is Albert, and I work mainly with a lot of ISMS implementation with our clients. I had the fantastic opportunity to actually read the 73 pages of the directive, which I might not necessarily recommend, but it does help us now, because we're here to basically explain some of the aspects.
Absolutely, yeah. And I should say that, you know, we're expecting the conversation today to get like fairly technical, fairly advanced. So we are maybe expecting a little bit of familiarization with the subject matter at hand. So if you start to feel like you're not following the conversation, don't worry. There's plenty of materials and other webinars about this on our website. So make sure to check those. All right, but can you guys give me like a brief overview of what's behind NIS2? Why is it important?
It brings minimum level security requirements to critical infrastructure players who necessarily haven't had any regulation before. Mm-hmm. So it's really something that at this time of world where we are living is necessary, and it's sort of it's not like a high level thing. It's mainly like a minimum level security things that companies just nowadays should already have. But if you don't have any regulation, any legal background where to lean, it's really hard for companies and organizations to start drawing in the air that what would good look like. So to get some background, some kind of a little push on the back that now is the right time to start actually doing this. I think it's really like welcome the regulation as it is at the moment.
Okay, is that your take, that it's leveling the playing field, helping people along? It's not just the regulators coming down on your ass, it's making life difficult.
No, it is an update to an existing directive. So the reason they why are they doing a sequel? What was wrong with the first directive? And it's the reason for it is simple. They noticed that the first implementation got a little bit scattered. Every EU country did it a little bit. They made their own interpretation. And so by setting, kind of saying, well, this is the minimum that we expect, you're free to add more, then it starts to look a little bit more similar between the member states. It's no longer a big difference between, I don't know, say Germany and Sweden. Yeah. Instead, they're starting to get aligned more.
Okay, that makes sense. But we are, at the end of the day, talking about compliance to the standard. So yeah. Presumably there's such a thing as non-compliance. What are some of the consequences of that?
Well, they introduced fines. I think it was they tested it out with GDPR, and they realized that people get much more interested in personal information and protecting it if they get fined. Yeah. Unfortunately, I would love to see that people do this by just because it feels right. But with companies that have budgets and tendency of risk management is about using money and resources on protecting things, and sometimes it might be easier to reserve time and money for fixing something when you know that it also has legal consequences.
Yeah. Okay. So do you feel that the sort of the regulation, who it applies to, what you need to do, is that fairly well understood in the industry, or like what are some of the common questions you get?
I would say it's actually a lot of different ones, but I mean, some of them stem from a little bit more of the challenge, and that would be okay, well, here's this compliance regulation, and it talks about accountability for the top management and the board. But listen, I'm just the IT person here, or maybe I'm a CISO and I'm on my own. How do I make them understand that, look, this is on your plate. You need to drive this. This is not just IT risk. This is something that permeates the whole organization. That I would say that is one of the ones I get a lot. Like, how do I convince the top management to tackle this?
Yeah, that cultural shift is one thing to tackle. The other is that it's pretty vague in giving instructions on how to do things or what is expected. So it just gives you oversight that you should understand your supply chains and handle them in a risk-aware manner. And link it all to your business objectives. And with companies that haven't done this before, it's just like, okay, what does that mean? So what would a good look like? What is enough? And that is something that is sort of quite common question that we get quite a lot, because it's not like my beloved PCI DSS, for example, that dictates that use 12 characters in a password, and that's it. So you can tick the box, but this is all risk-based. So we have food production plants and power plants. They have very different threat actors and threat landscapes and risks and all sorts of functions that they need to bake in. We couldn't just say that everybody has to do it like this. It's that you have to interpret your own field of industry, your own risks, your own place in the food chain or supply chain, and do what's necessary for you to ensure the functions. And that is something that is quite often even like on broader scale or on individual things, let's say incident response or like said, the supply chain management, that, okay, what should we actually do? So that's why we're having this webinar.
Exactly. but I mean, if these are the big questions, how do I sell this internally? What is it that I absolutely have to do? Is there a simple answer to either one of these that we can get out of the way right here in the beginning? Like, how do you sell this internally?
I can say in terms of the management aspect of it, I have seen some technical CISOs, for example, focus a little bit too much on the jargon of what they're working on in terms of technical solutions only, for example, but they're not talking risks, because that is the language that management understands. They might react to, oh wait, risks. But if you tell them, oh, this EDR or this CM solution, they will just look at you like, what are you talking about?
And what is that related to?
Yeah, because they don't necessarily, you might understand the connection. Well, that it protects against this. But for them, it's a matter of talking, well, risks, information security risk in particular. So you have to be a bit careful also not to get lost into the other domains that you might not be experienced in. But you talk about risks, you frame it in a way that it's not just an IT risk. You talk about ownership, risk ownership, like you're in charge of this business unit. Okay, what sort of risks do we see in relation to this business unit? You're the risk owner. How do you address it? How do you map it against the measures, for example? So it's a matter of the way you express it, and you also need to not be the security guy in the corner or girl that is not actively participating in these management discussions, these management meetings. You want to at least invite yourself to.
So let me ask you this. So when you've sort of convinced the people that this is what needs to happen, the whole organization is on board, what are typically like the biggest challenges in the actual journey to compliance then? Like what are some of the harder things to do?
If we start from that place where it's about laying ownership and building that overall like risk-aware working culture. So if we start from there, I think it's the biggest challenge to push is that people start, people find the need to follow the instructions. So we are on like very first steps of understanding that the rules are there to protect our own, like back if we go to core, that we have done enough. We can't be sort of said that you didn't do the risk management parts and you didn't do your part. So it's about like protecting our own business and our own stance in legal courts, and keep our business running so that we have place to work and all that kind of thing. So to get that mind shift that this is about for us, our own benefit and not for someone stupid auditor coming in so we can just show him some papers or them some papers. Of course, we then moving into like practical implementation of things, many of these will require quite a lot of money. So we are not. I was about to say to the previous question, building on Albert's response, that if once we get the ownership there, it's because it's risk management. It's about better and better understanding your own place, where to stand, what kind of things you're against, what should not happen. Risks are basically just events that we want to avoid. How to avoid them? You get all the time. You get better and better at it, because when you're assessing something, something happens. You know, learn from the mistakes. You do internal audits. You get external audits. You all the time just get better at it. So it's not something that you can start from the top. It's you have to learn with the baby steps, and that's kind of like the key also to that. What is enough and what should we actually do is that you have to start from somewhere and continue improving. But part of those things, if you, for example, don't have thorough visibility over the security incident or security events in your organizations, you might not, for example, you only collect logs from Windows CEs but not Linux CEs and OT systems at all, then you might have some implementation to do, and that always, like, it's an IT project and it costs and takes a lot of effort. So implementing basic IT functionalities to support the risk management. Eventually, like, log collection is a risk mitigation tool.
Yeah, most of the stuff sounds pretty universal, but are you finding like differences between industries in what's difficult and what's not?
Yeah, I mean, you need to definitely look at what sort of vertical you're part of, because I mean, the directive says, okay, critical sectors, and here are the sectors, but then obviously if you start looking into your business operations and the sort of IT and applications that you use, this will differ. So obviously if it's manufacturing, you're using a lot of operational technology that is OT, then you need to look, okay, well, how do I protect that? And that connects probably to some IT infrastructure. Are they segmented? How am I ensuring that the people operating these things are doing it, again, in a secure fashion? And how are we patching this? But if you're, for example, more into developing a software product, maybe it's a physical product, but also hardware components, then you need to look like, well, okay, so how do we work with secure development practices? And then we're not just talking about, oh, you know, I'll just get this fancy, shiny tool and just turn it on and it works. No, this is about you working with your developers and how they understand how to do secure coding. They don't understand it automatically. You might be lucky and they have worked at a previous company that did secure development work. But if they haven't, and they were not taught in uni or any other place, then guess what? You need to upskill your developers and you need to establish the secure development practices. That's, again, that will look from each vertical very differently.
And that is exactly the sort of the challenge or the intriguing part of NIS2, that it looks a bit different with every company. And since it is focusing on ensuring that our society works in harsh conditions, so we are ensuring these critical services for private citizens, like living in our society. So it should always be the focus point that if it's that application that you're providing that makes you NIS2 compliant or NIS2 like applicable, then you should focus on the risks that are preventing you from producing that code. Or if you're producing power or food, then it should be about how to ensure that functionality. And that might be sometimes a bit different than, for example, your pure business objectives, or like how to make your money. You might make your money from different things, but if this part of your business makes you NIS2 applicable, then the NIS2 risk management should focus on how do we keep that factory up and running, and how do we keep that production line up and running. So and to map that into IT systems that they use. So what IT needs to be up and running so that our factory doesn't stop? Okay, what would prevent them from being up and running? What kind of threats we see? What can we? How can we protect them? So it's about like identifying those, and they might be the same ones for your business objectives, but they might also be something different.
All right. So I guess I understand the challenges a little bit better now, but on your journey towards compliance, is there something that is typically sort of the hardest thing to fix, or the costliest thing to fix? Like, what's the biggest sort of security control or implementation? Like, what's the hardest part?
I can start. So, for example, if you look at these security requirements, let's say you looked at them and you thought, okay, we want to address these, but we don't want to address them one by one necessarily. So you decide, okay, I'm going to implement a full ISMS. Now, ISMS is not something you implement, over a few days and it's all done. You get your, burger and fries. And
you install it.
It is a long-term commitment, both in terms of economical resources, time, and also timeline, because you probably have to involve different business units and different functions, departments, because it's not like you're just going to produce a paper product and everyone magically follows it. That never happens. You will actively have to either yourself or engage resources that actually do that, and actually convince people to also be on board and understand why it's important.
Okay. So, big part of this is supply chain, risk management. What are some of your tips sort of in that area? How do you sort of make your supply chains NIS2 compliant for you?
I think for that, you need to understand the business process change or operational process change. Like I said, the ones that you need to be up and running in order for you to be able to produce the service or the end result or product that makes you NIS2 applicable. And if you have that, let's say you're making a bread, so you need to take the ingredients, you have to bake the bread, you have to take it to the store so that people can buy it, and then you're done. But so you need to break it down into pieces, and you have to figure out what might go wrong in this part, what might go wrong in this part, what might go wrong in this part. Okay, what IT does this part require? What about this? What about this? And then you start drilling it down. All of a sudden, by accident, you have mapped your IT risks to your business risks.
Exactly.
Happened by chance.
So this is your risk management as well.
This is risk management altogether. Risk management is about preventing undesired things, and it means something for the business level, but it means something else for the network architects and the software developers. When you're outsourcing something, you're using an application created by someone else, or you're utilizing, outsourcing partner to manage your cloud or drive your trucks. No matter what part of that chain you outsource, the essential thing is to ensure that that outsourcing partner understands what part of your own chain you are giving to that party. Because quite often in supply management, we jump into conclusions that there needs to be this golden Excel sheet that we need to send. The most common question is that, what should we ask from the suppliers? And I always reply that, what would you ask from your own personnel if they would be doing the same thing? So what would be the most valuable thing for you to get, like, report out what you need to be ensured that your own team knows that they do this stuff and you can trust that? Well, now you just give it in a way to someone else. So ask the same question from them. So that's, I think for the NIS2 kind of thinking, the main part of supply chain is to really not to understand how to vet perfect suppliers. It's about understanding the impact that those suppliers have to those bigger chain of events that you want to protect.
And I would say and you treat the type of supplier very differently. You won't necessarily treat a software as a service provider as someone providing a consultancy service, or if they're providing an outsourced function, because the security implications are different. On one hand, the software is maybe integrated into your existing infrastructure, or maybe it's providing a service for a function, you want to make sure that that software product, that they have secure development practices, that they are protecting it. Whilst for the one that provides a service function, you want those employees to be very security conscious, because they might be working on site or off site providing this function. But you don't want them to, to have full-blown access. You don't want them to not have received the security awareness training, that they understand that they're handling, not their data, they handle your data. They need to be very careful.
That's an excellent point to make, because NIS2 works differently, like GDPR or, for example, PCI DSS. So if you outsource something from PCI DSS, then the supplier needs to be fully compliant with everything that is written in PCI DSS. So in order for them to certify themselves for PCI DSS, so they can give you that certificate that you don't have to come and audit us because we have this certificate. So they have to follow everything that is written in PCI DSS in order to get that stamp. Like in GDPR, if you're like a sub-processor of someone's personal data, then you have to follow everything that is written in GDPR. But NIS2 doesn't work like that. So if you are a NIS2 applicable company, let's say you're producing that code and you give part of that code breaking stuff to someone else, then you need to make sure that those people provide you with the security controls and quality code that you need in order to be NIS2 compliant. So we've already now seen like initial asks or requests coming to suppliers that give us NIS2 compliant service. And that's not just how it goes. There is no such thing as PCI compliant service or NIS2 compliant service. It's about like, if I give up like a courier service to courier service provider, I need to ensure that that courier service is something that my own risk management is requesting that courier service to be. And that needs to be in contract. I need to define those as security requirements and appendixes on the contracts, so that I am sure that I get what I need for my risk management.
All right. So it's not as easy as saying you need to be NIS2 compliant.
We have this NIS2. Are you NIS2 compliant? Yes, you are. Okay. Nice.
Right.
It's all about like it needs to go into details, especially if it's anything related to actual security. So it's like hosting something or developing something. They're your security controls that those people are just taking care of. So
very good and practical advice. And I should point out that we are going to have some time towards the end to have the audience questions. So please feel free to submit those. If there's something you want to find out and we haven't talked about it, or if you need us to elaborate on something, just post the questions below, and we'll have some time for those in the end. But I did want to ask you guys about sort of some of this stuff sounds like it's internal discussions, and some of it is maybe stuff that we can help the clients with. What sort of support have organizations asked from you guys, and what sort of support would you like them to ask from you guys? Like, where can experts help?
Well, I think the most common question is that how far are we? So what kind of like gap analysis kind of approach, and we can do that because, like I said, the risk management is not black magic. It's something it's logical thinking and putting our heads together and drinking enough coffee or tea, no matter what's your flavor is, but just spending time on thinking through stuff. We can help out with that, and we can, like I said, the big picture or the big question is that what is enough? That if we start from scratch, what are our cyber risks and IT risks and how we should map them into everything else that we do? We help with that, and then we can bring in some like expert advice and sort of our own expertise on thinking that, well, we've seen in companies of your business these kind of things to work out well. These were over the top and these were too low because they got breached. So we can help out with measuring the levels on what is enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you do this gap, because that's one of the things, you need to kind of get the lay of the land. Because if you're feeling like, well, I don't understand how it looks in my company, well, then that's an indicator that you probably should do a gap analysis first before you decide on do other stuff. Because based on those gaps that you find, then you know, okay, so based on the money that I have or money that I need to, again, request, then I can address those gaps. And then you can also involve us saying, okay, well, I need help with secure development, or, you know, we don't have any disaster recovery plans in place. Who can start, you know, doing the coordination work with the teams to make sure that that is in place and plan the exercises for it. Maybe we want to do crisis management with the management again, so they understand, like, well, how would it feel if something would happen, something big would happen? How would they have to manage it to get the urgency? Because the only other way for them to get necessarily the urgency is to actually experience it, which I don't want them to.
Don't go that way. No, if you can avoid it. And building on that, I think, well, NIS2 is in a sense still closer to PCI than, for example, ISO 27001, in a way that 27001 is risk management and security management framework in a way, and building a security management system for you to be able to control and manage your security. But PCI DSS goes all the way, saying that you have to harden every technology based on industry standard hardening tables and patch everything within timeframes and all that stuff. I just read through this, that Traficom, which is the Finnish supervising authority, like pretty much on like in charge of implementing NIS2, just published for public commenting upcoming instructions for other supervising authorities. This is interesting to read because supervising authorities will be the ones that are going to audit the companies under their own sectors of NIS2. So by reading that and reading between the lines, you can actually get a pretty good view on what Traficom is expecting the auditors to check on companies when they come and audit NIS2. And I have to say that was pretty into detail and down to like they even mentioned things like don't get scared. Of course, everything is like you applicable to someone, not to applicable to everyone, but they go into details that you know, inventory should include MAC addresses of devices that you have in your network so that you can identify stuff that shouldn't be there. And they go into that. The auditors need to check the you know, configurations of infrastructure devices, check the hardenings, you know, check the penetration testing results if you have any. If you don't have any, you should have an explanation why don't you have any. So it goes all the way into like this, and it's understandable because, you know, to be honest, like own personal view, not necessarily you know, expressing the official view, but I think, for example, ISMS is a tool for CISOs to build up like management solution, get all the strings to your hands. Where NIS2 is purely about keeping the hackers out from our, you know, electric grids, keeping our society up and running, and you don't keep hackers out from your system by having well-written policy. You need the policy for different things. In order to keep those hackers out, you need to have those security patches installed in like minimum time. Everything hardened, all the disabled that you don't need, have proper logging. You know, it goes into like this hard old school IT, and that takes time and money and effort and.
It's complicated. Like, let's be honest. Like, if we understood how to do that, we would have done it years ago.
So it's a continual process, and it requires like tedious tasks, and it requires people to get interested in that, resourced in that.
So look, before we go into the audience questions, can we just sort of try to summarize all of this? Like, I'm not going to ask you like 3 bullet points, but I'm going to ask you for 3 bullet points. Like, how do you summarize? Like, what should companies? What should these good people out there looking for? Like, what am I supposed to do next? Like, what's our advice? Couple of like different. Where do we start?
Let's see. I'll have it now. So I would say, don't wait for like more guidance. So like it's the classic. Oh, I'll wait until deadline. No. Be the early bird gets the worm in this case, because it looks better if you have something concrete to present to the auditors when they come and show. So, you know, if you already start to do some things and it gets clarified over time, then you have something to present. You're in a better position than someone that just kind of shrugs their shoulders like, I don't know, what is this NIS2 thing? That is one thing. The second, we were mentioning it a little bit. writing policies and procedures and just creating paper products won't get the real effect. It is part of it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't write down anything. You should write it down. But don't expect people like, oh, this is a great 100-page policy, and they will magically implement it. You need to engage with the people and, for example, train them in it, present it, actively walk the talk, and engage them in workshops, for example. So that's the second one. So walk the talk, actively engage. The third one. Do
you have something?
Yeah, just reverse everything that has been said about maintaining good practices in IT for the last 30 years.
How do you mean?
We've been talking about patch management, access control, logging, ensuring that your computers are up to date, like supported by don't use end-of-life products. All this stuff, physical security, know what you have, keep inventory. NIS2 didn't bring anything new to the table. It's all news. It's built from blocks that have been the best practices for years and years and years.
Right. Okay.
So don't think that it's more complicated than it is. It's basic IT stuff, pretty much.
So if you're waiting for that excuse to get back to the basics, now's your time.
Or the magical box that keeps on blinking and keeps the NIS2 baddies away. It's about patch management. It's about ensuring that people only have the access that they need. All about that. And it's something that, like I said, it's not something that's going to be written out more specifically, because it is what it is. And just ramping up readiness. And my key takeaway number one would be to understand, like I said, to understand the chains of events that you need to ensure that your company can pull off, whether it's software development or it's the production line that brings out those car tires. Doesn't matter. Map that into IT systems that production line or service production line needs in order to run. And use your own IT people and internal people and engineers on that, because they know that stuff the best. And then map those into what is expected from these companies or these IT systems. And all of a sudden you map those expectations coming from business. You don't have to scrape your crystal ball to understand that what would be the enough recovery time in a disaster. Your business can answer that.
So you're starting from the outcomes.
Because all of a sudden with NIS2 and with everything like development like this, it's always coming sort of from the side. The IT starts to guess what would be the best approach to this, where all the answers are already in the organization. The business knows what they need. The factory owners know how much recovery time is enough. Then just drill it down into IT and understand that it is basic IT stuff.
Right.
And that needs resourcing.
Hey, I do want to take a couple of audience questions now. First one is about companies operating internationally. How will NIS2 impact you if you're present in sort of multiple markets?
We just had a chat about it, that it's been a bit up in the air still. In the beginning, the original message was that if you are operating in many member states, then each of these, for example, you have a production factory in, let's say, in Germany, then that factory should follow the German law. And if you have headquarters in Finland, then that's under Finnish law. And now they've sort of pulled that back a bit, and the talk at the moment has been that it should be kind of like the one-stop shop kind of GDPR thing, that if your headquarters in Finland, then the organization is altogether needs to follow the Finnish regulation. But from that side, it's still a bit up in the air, and we are expecting more thorough and clarified instructions coming from EU. If you're on the supplier chain side, so like a European company using third-party suppliers outside EU, for example, or international base, and then it's about risk management and putting those into your contracts and ensuring that those third parties will supply you with the stuff that you need for your internal risk management. So it doesn't really matter if it's in what part of the globe you are. But if you're producing something that to a company that needs to be NIS2 compliant, then the NIS2 compliant companies should put that into security appendixes as security requirements.
Yeah, because I've had like questions, let's say a distributor of something, and they're like, well, does NIS2 apply to me? It's like, well, you're not manufacturing the stuff, you're distributing them. So you might expect, for example, that the manufacturer gives you security requirements because they are hit by NIS2, and you're distributing to an end customer that might be a NIS2 customer. So they're starting to give you security requirements from there. And so there's indirect impact, even though you might not be covered as a NIS2 by NIS2 in that sense.
Gotcha. Okay.
So like a downstream.
Yeah. All right. I maybe should point out that some of these questions have been submitted previously, and some are live audience questions. And in fact, let me get to a live question right now. We're talking about auditors. So who's going to be auditing NIS2 and sort of on what authority?
So it's basically every member state will have to define that the supervisory authority, it's just a term, but it means that, within these government agencies, someone will get assigned, you're responsible to audit this sector to make sure that they are NIS2 compliant. And this will look different for each country. So, I mean, they need to define that and then be given the basically the resources, first of all, the financial resources so that they can audit. And the second of all saying, well, you're responsible for this sector. And in a lot of cases, if they are already today auditing that sector in other aspects, it's not crazy to think that they might get NIS2 as part of their already existing assignments.
And at least in the Finnish law text and in the instructions that Traficom is preparing at the moment, and I understood that similar kind of wording is also in Sweden, that is written out also that these auditing bodies might use third parties for doing the auditing for them, or at least subcontracting parts of them, because you might, it was written so in the instructions that if the auditors, official auditors coming from the supervising authorities, don't have resources or capabilities or skills to, for example, audit a specific technology, they might use third-party auditors for that. So it might be that, let's see how the thing goes, but most often they are hired guns from consulting units.
Okay.
And they will report these results to the
naturally, yes.
Right. So the supervisory authority still has the responsibility, but it's just parts of it.
All right. Now, I know we started a couple of minutes late, but I do sort of want to finish more or less on time. But there's a lightning round, really fast question for you guys. Will there be any government assistance or resources available to help companies comply with NIS2?
There's going to be, there already kind of is. So the instructions are going to be more thorough. So there's already initiatives that, for example, where we have been participating in, where the Finnish Information Security Cluster has pulled off this like practical implementation guide for Finnish industries for NIS2, and that kind of advice and instruction and guidelines are also coming from Traficom. So keep on looking for that. So companies are not left alone with this.
Yeah, I can mention for Sweden, the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency, they are the ones that kind of try to provide resources, again, reference material.
Yeah.
And I should stress that they won't do NIS2 for you. It's a matter of them being a support. So you can, for example, ask the questions to them. But I mean, still the groundwork has to be done. And whether you do it yourself or you hire external people to do it for you, that is up to you. But yes, there will be that sort of thing. As for the other member state, you will have to look for each member state. If the government has published anything specific, you can also try to keep track of NISA, because NISA, the EU Cybersecurity Agency, I mean, they're kind of the ones that stand behind NIS2 and other, not just NIS2. So if they publish something, then that's definitely something you should be following.
So paying attention to whoever that supervisory national authority is going to be, and sort of what sort of information they put out. Okay.
And for example, the supervising authorities are already listed in Traficom's page.
Well, there you go. There you go. All right. So couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar has been recorded and the recording will be made available. So if you want to revisit some of this technical problems and all, there is a separate WithSecure consulting presence now on LinkedIn and social media. So make sure to subscribe to that one as well. And if you have any questions, further questions, or anything you need our help with, please get in touch. And I think the easiest way right now might be just to reply to the webinar invite. Those emails will be monitored, so we can just see what you need support with, and we'll get in touch. With that, I want to thank you guys for walking us through this topic. I want to thank everybody for joining us or watching the recording later on. Thanks, and I hope to see you next time.